Hey guys, the Cubist MTG here, and we are going over my new Pauper cube. For those of you who don't know, I usually do a vintage powered cube, so this is the exact opposite of what it is. The vintage powered has power 9, it has all the good lands, everything you could ever want in it. Very high power level, so I thought I'd switch it up and make a very cheap budget Pauper cube. And what that means is it's just a cube with any card that's ever been printed in a common slot. So this video is kind of the introduction to it. I always like to go through and read my cards and make sure I know everything that's going on, because as someone that owns a cube, you have to become the expert. So we're going to take a look at this. This will help me relearn cards and kind of get to know the synergies and what's going on in it. I ordered all my cards from tcgplayer.com. Kind of a bad experience, but also I kind of just got through it. So my list was about 400 cards. And if you don't know about TCG Player, what they do is they have a whole bunch of sellers that sell on there. And you get really good prices on cards, especially commons. But you have to order minimums from them. So for me, I put my 400 card list in there, and it gives you... Basically, you can optimize it so you get the best prices on everything, and it made the thing crash and would not work with 400 cards. So I had to break it up into pieces, and over everything, it probably cost me about $50 to make this cube. So if you're looking to make a cube that's fun and easy, especially for beginners, this is the way to do it. Spend $50, you got a whole set. So we're just going to go through and we're going to talk about the lands and the artifacts today. So we're going to start off with just a couple of the weird ones. So we have Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse. Essentially, they are the exact same card, but I even run these in my Vintage Powered Cube because, honestly, it's a really on-the-cheap sack land. Turn 1, these are great, and they're just overall pretty powerful for what they do. They fit in every deck, so every deck could run these, and that's what I like about them. Next up, we have the Urza's Mine, Power Plant, and Tower. This is a huge ramp setup. These are very cheap too. I added these last minute because Ultimate MTG reminded me that these are really great commons. They run about $1 a piece, and basically what they do is they add 1 colorless mana, but if you have all 3 of them, they add 3 colorless. So if you have all 3, you got 9 mana, boom, you're ready to go. So a cheap addition, nice. Next we have the Guild Gates, which have been repopularized from the new sets. Basically, it's just they come into play tapped and they generate 2 different kinds of mana. In the Pauper Cube, you do not have dual lands, you do not have sack lands, you do not have pain lands. So these are about as good as they get. Coming into play tapped, but giving you 2 mana, and these are dirt cheap. I mean, half of these, if I'm being honest, I found in the free box at Niagara Falls Magic Fest. So that's where I picked up a few of those. And these next 2 sets of lands kind of go along the same way. So these ones here are, I don't even know what they're called, but they just come into play tapped and add 2 mana. So they're essentially the same exact thing. And for me, when I'm doing drafting, especially with cubes, I want really good land base. So if you are, say you're drafting, you know, white, green, if you can pick up a couple of these, your mana is instantly already better. Big fan of the lands that come in like this. But there's that, and the third kind of goes right into it. So you have 3 chances to get the lands that you're looking for. These are exactly the same things. They come into play tap, give you 2 things of mana, 2 different colored mana, but they give you a little life when you come into play. So, I mean, they're just barely different, but at the common slot, you're looking for everything you can get with the lands. So that's the land base right there. Not too hard. Honestly, these are mega cheap, and most people that buy packs have these already. So you can just throw them in and keep them going. And then we'll take a look at some of these artifacts here. Now these ones will get a little more in-depth with, because a lot of these I don't even know myself. I just went off some lists that use these as commonplace. So we got Kozilek's Channeler, 5 mana, add 2. This is fine. I mean, it's got a good body on it, 4/4. It's not really a mana dork, but it adds 2 mana, and if you can ramp into it, you got it, ready to go. Fits in a green deck. Fits in an artifact deck. Next, we got a Bonded Construct. Can't attack alone, which makes it okay. But this can fit into red, green, any of the decks that just need a good beater. I mean, that's a great card, even as a blocker. With our Urza Power Plant combo, we do want some big Eldrazi boys. So this is just an 8/9 trample, nothing crazy, but you can ramp into it very easily. Fits in a lot of decks. In the Vintage Powered Cube, we really don't run a lot of equipments, but I feel like in the Pauper Cube, these are great because this costs 1 mana attached with 1, and whenever the equipped creature goes into a graveyard, you gain a life. Just pretty good power level for a common. Same with this. When this enters, you get a 0/0 black germ, so you just get a 1/1 for 1. But then after that dies, you can equip for 2. So overall, pretty powerful. I love this card. Back when I was playing Standard and New Phyrexia, I used this in a Sorin deck. But it's just add 1 mana to your mana pool, gain a life. Nothing too crazy, but again, it helps with ramping, especially if you're playing big green. Okay, so the Sphere. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put them in your hand. Cards like this are important, especially with Pauper, because not every card is good, so the games tend to last a little longer. They're more about getting value, and this card for 2 mana is super good big value, especially with, mana dorks and things like that. Cogwork Librarian. Now, this is another thing I want to talk about is some weird cards that I could put in here. So I put in Unhinged, Unglued, a couple of cards. I put in cards like this that just have really cool mechanics. So this one is while you're drafting. Draft him face up. As you draft a card, you may draft an additional card from that booster pack. If you do, put him into the pack. So once you draft him, you set him on the table. You pull your next pack. You're like, oh, I like 2 of these cards. You take 2, put him back in. And it's just kind of like a cool little meta game that you could throw in. Some people like that. Some people won't like that. It pays to, before you start a draft, talk about the cards like this in your cube. Talk about the unhinged. Talk about the weird ones when they come up so that people know what to do. Because, if you're trying to teach new players like I often do, they're going to be confused by this. But overall, I'm trying to make a friendly new player cube. The Bola here, unattach it, tap target creature for 1. Just a nice little, kind of fits into a lot of decks. Nice control card. Add 1 mana for the Prism. Nothing too crazy, but you want to have mana fixing in the Pauper Cube. It's very important. Just because, especially in the higher powered cards, are multicolored cards. And they are going to play a huge, making sure you have the right mana when you have a weak mana base. Again, 2/2 for 2. Morningstar, nothing crazy. My favorite mechanic, I think, is Landfall. Now, it's not as broken because you don't have the sack lands, but with Terramorphic Expanses, things like this, it is a nice little power card. If you happen to have the right combo of cards, you can put in a Terramorphic Expanse, find a card, creature gets 4/4. Not bad. Target opponent loses 3 life. It's important for artifacts to fit into a lot of different decks. This works in, as a burn spell. This works as a control card because you're also progressing the game but getting a body, and it's just 4 colorless mana. And the exact opposite of that, gain 3 life. And for the same exact reason, even as a burn beat deck, you might want to gain a little life, or as control. All good to go. More Eldrazi, just a big boy with Annihilator, and he attacks each combat if able. If you can ramp into him, this is your big boy. Guardian Idol comes into play tapped, generates mana, but also can become a 2/2. Again, this is good in a lot of different decks, and I think that's kind of the role of artifacts, is to make sure they can play in a lot of different decks. Perilous Mire, when he comes into play, 2 damage to target creature or player. Just a good control card. Body and deal damage. I'm not a huge fan of vehicles, but we threw this one in there. Crew 2, and whenever it attacks, it gets 1/1 and trample till end of turn. Fine. Just for, like I said, these are a bunch of cards that are good. Test them. Right now it's at about 400 cards. I want to get it down to a tight 360, no more. Sparring Construct, whenever he dies, put a 1/1 on a creature you control. Again, this is great in a fast deck, red deck wins, black deck wins kind of thing. And then we have a clay statue, and I put this kind of in just for nostalgia. I remember getting this as like one of my first Magic cards, but I also want to make sure that new players know nice little keywords like regenerate. And there's not a lot of good regenerate commons, but I feel like this is one that is understandable. So, all right, guys, that was the lands and the artifacts that are in the Pauper Cube. We're going to try and do one video a week where we just kind of go through and do it, and then we're going to jump into having Pauper on a certain day. Please check out the videos that have released this week. We are giving away some cards. We're giving away our foils on our War of the Spark box opening, and we're also throwing in a nice little Teferi for anyone that wants to comment, like, and subscribe, and you can check it out and get it. That's on the video that was posted right before this one. But I hope you guys are excited about the Pauper Cube. I think it's more relatable than the vintage Power Cube for most people. And it's kind of weird for me because usually my Pauper Cube is all real cards, and my vintage Powered is a lot of fake cards. And I think that's kind of polarizing, but this is, I've always been wanting to teach some friends how to play Magic, and I think this is the best way to do it. So thanks for checking it out, guys. Please comment, subscribe, and we will see you next time.